Welcome to a Vintage Cards Mail Day. And before we crack into the mail, we've got a couple of 51 Bowmans for you to look at. We've got Hall of Famer Lou Boudreau. And Boudreau was a longtime player manager for the Cleveland Indians and star shortstop in Cleveland. And what I love about his 1948 season is he was starting shortstop, American League MVP, and player manager of the World Series champion Cleveland Indians. So, can't ask for much else from a ball player in a single season. So, that's Boudreau on the left. And on the right, we've got his teammate, who is another all-time great center fielder, Larry Doby, big-time slugger, led the AL in home runs twice, and kind of an underrated player in my opinion, but multiple great seasons as a slugger, and well-deserved Hall of Famer. It took a while for him to get there, but finally, a few years before he passed away, he finally got in. So. Almost a Ron Santos situation, but love this 51 Bowman card. Color is just tremendous, and those baggy pants look great. His batting stance, especially the fact that he's not wearing any batting gloves, that's pretty cool. And I feel like the backdrop with the crowd in the stands just puts you right into 1951. So you can even see the dugout and some of the faces in the crowd, the grass. Just a really cool card. And this is actually the first card I picked up in person at my LCS last year when I got back into collecting. So I saw he had this card and I was eyeing it online, and then saw it in his Bowman box and had to grab it. So just one of my all-time favorite cards, actually, and love the 51 Bowman set. But now onto the mail. We've got wouldn't be a mail day without some 53 tops, right? So first up, we got another Brooklyn Dodger, 53 tops, Billy Lowe's. And he was a pretty good pitcher. He had an 11-year career in the major leagues, and he was later on, he was an all-star with Baltimore. But before that, he had 3 or 4 good years in Brooklyn, including he was a big part of the World Series champion 55 Brooklyn Dodgers. But really, he lost his ability to get strikeouts kind of early in his career. So he seemed like he was pretty effective his first 4 seasons in Brooklyn, and probably his best season in 52. He was 22 years old, and he was really a huge part of that team. But kind of a common card now, but I do really like the pose and kind of the close-up shot and the big B, and even the glove. It just really feels like you can't miss it. So Billy Lowe's, Brooklyn Dodgers. And next up, we've got another Pirates, and showing my Roy face earlier. Here's Ron Klein. There's another pitcher on Pittsburgh, and he had a really long career. This guy, he pitched 17 seasons in the big leagues, and I hadn't heard of him until I started collecting this set. So there's a lot of good guys who played for a long time back then. So we got he played a little while in Pittsburgh, but really he had his best years with the Washington Senators. So just stuck on bad teams in the 50s and 60s. but went on to be a really good reliever in Washington. Piled up 108 saves in his career, which back in the 50s and 60s was quite a bit. So again, another nice pose, kind of like the Roy Face card that I had showed previously, sort of in action pose with Ron Klein. Next up, we've got just one of the neatest cards in the 53 Topps set, in my opinion, and it's Johnny Lindell. And you can probably guess, if you look closely, why it's a neat card. He's holding a bat, but it says pitcher, Pittsburgh Pirates. So it turns out he was actually he was an outfielder for the Yankees throughout the 40s, and even an all-star during the war years. He was an all-star with the Yanks. He won a couple World Series with them, and when he went to Pittsburgh, they converted him into a pitcher. So he didn't have much of a career as a pitcher, to be honest. He really he pitched a little bit again during the war, briefly in 42, and then with the Pirates, and then briefly with the Phillies. I think he has a 54 Topps card with Philadelphia, I've seen. So, but that's really it. So he just pitched one real full season, and that was this one in 1953. But so when he was with the Yankees, I mean, he was pretty good. Hit a bunch of triples, and just a good, solid outfielder. But I think after the war, he probably wasn't quite Yankee material, I guess, at that time. So he was shipped off to Pittsburgh. But just another cool card, a neat story from the 53 set, Johnny Lindell.